all of you who have joined in the meantime. Thank you for joining. And that was Alessia speaking about the project and about the residency, which is called KYUB Innovative Sonic Culture, which is a collaborative project between IKLECTIK in London and Institute of Sound from Kiev, which Alessia is running. And the project was a residency for musicians based in Ukraine, and basically offering music production workshops and other ways how to connect as a music community and online. And these two panels, one of them is today, another is tomorrow, will sort of explore or focus on music as a tool for making a change, actually. And I think both of these panels will do that in slightly different ways. And today we have a talk which is focusing on music and activism. And tomorrow at the same time at 7 p.m. CET, there's a talk about music and war that will be moderated by Alessia, who's here. And for those who have joined later, maybe Alessia, could you say briefly something about the project and about all of the people who are around you now in the screen?
Yeah, I will try to say it briefly, and the main points, how the concept of the residency changed with the start of the full-scale invasion, because we planned it completely different, and we planned it as more educative and like advanced level for musicians. And then we had to start the residency because we got funding and we had to do something, but we understand that the situation changed completely what we planned, and it became not of the real state of what's going on. And we decided, first of all, to support financially musicians who continue living in Ukraine and create in Ukraine, who are not evacuated, because you know that mostly like musicians, they can't leave the country, and many musicians, they have families, they can have their partners, their children, they also can't leave the country, and the situation with the jobs, it's really critical. So we had this idea to support financially, and then in the process of the residency, we understood that it also a huge psychological support, because we all needed this relief via communication and coming back to music, even if it's communicated, even if it's only communicated about the music, because for many people it's still very hard to create music, to allow themselves to create music. And also why we understood we need to do the panel discussions, because this like the word unique, it's not the best word for the lifetime we experience, but still we would love to share our experience and to find maybe answers on the situation we experience that we are going through. And thanks to your experience of the speakers we invited today, we also would love to find some answers maybe, and some support, yeah, and communicating with the other artistic communities, it's also very supportive. So that's why we started this. We found that the main themes, music and activism, music and war, they're the most important, and activism is also the way out of this hard situation and hard psychological situation, because when being active and even collecting, being a volunteer, it's appeared to be very helpful in everyday life in Ukraine. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So we have guests on this panel who come from different parts of the geographically, different regions and different cities, and they are either artists or they're also organizers. They're active in various fields of culture and arts, and there are also 2 artists who are part of the residency on the panel. So we can start an introduction round just to introduce your activities briefly, and then we can talk more. And for those who are joining and watching, if you have any question, then feel free to write it either in the chat or raise your hand, and feel free, to also jump in throughout the talk if you have anything. Okay, so shall we start with who shall we start? I see on the screen Seba, so maybe
Yes.
Maybe you could start.
Yes, thank you for the invite and this really important panel talk. And I'm Seba Kayan, and I'm joining you from Vienna. And in my work, I'm a DJ, performer, and curator. And in my latest works, I did a live project called Sampling Politics, where I used the sound of the wars, especially from Iran and from Rojava, from Kurdistan, and did do this actually like a live performance. This was something that I also raised a question where I asked myself, how can we sample politics or use this sound to, I think, as Lena said before, like not to trigger that much of this environment, but also share or raise an awareness for this kind of topics. That's.
Maybe Paulina, I see you as next on the screen.
Hey everyone, my name is Paulina. I perform under the name dogheadsurigeri, and I'm an active member of Oramics collective. And in case you never heard of us, maybe I just do a very short and briefly introduction what Oramics is doing. So we are basically, and by the way, I'm Polish. So Oramics is some sort of it's a Polish queer feminist platform. And at the very beginning, when we founded the platform, it was in 2017. First, we wanted to emphasize the voices of female, queer, and non-binary people in the electronic music scene. And then basically around pandemic, I would say, we also switched a bit to focusing more on the region of Eastern Europe in general, and how this region is highly underrepresented in the Western world and in the Western music industry, and what we can basically do to amplify artists and voices from this region, and how we can bring a certain spotlight there as well, and interest. So very briefly, that's what Oramics is doing through different various activities that maybe I'll have a chance to talk about later. And hello everyone.
Thank you. Lena, perhaps you can introduce.
Hello, my name is Lena. My artist name is Lenoczka. And it's a big honor for me to have a part in this really important conversation. My background is I'm a multi-genre artist and performer. Previously, before the full-scale invasion, I used to work in Kharkiv, but now I'm working from my native city, Kryvyi Rih, which is located in central part of Ukraine, kind of safe place in Ukraine right now. And my focus is mostly on developing of local and underground scenes in Ukraine. And I will have a chance to speak about it more a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perhaps Gaby from Refuge Radio.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. I'm honored to be here to talk with everyone today. I am the co-founder and managing director of a non-profit music school called the Open Music Lab. So I started that 6 years ago, and it started off as a project working in refugee centers. And we then quickly built a studio outside of the centers to open up the space to a range of people that didn't have access to equipment, but also education, to try and remove that barrier of entry, because of course it's very expensive and there's often very difficult to buy the right sort of equipment to make music. So yeah, that's what we are doing with the Open Music Lab. I can talk more about that a little bit later. And I'm also now working on community development and education at Refuge Worldwide, which is a radio station based in Berlin. So we're a radio station, but we also have an editorial team who talk about issues that we care about. So environmental, migration, social activism, so these kind of topics. And we also have a community space where people can meet, exchange and learn from each other. So yeah, my background is very much in education and community organizing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you very much. And Ira from
Lviv, from Ukraine.
Yes, from
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hi everyone, I'm Ira, I'm based in Lviv, and I was based in Lviv before the full-scale invasion as well. I've been on and off away from the country because we've been touring with my music duo, and so touring and fundraising money, and we've done 24 concerts in 10 different countries in order to fundraise for the needs of Ukraine. And yeah, so this was my primarily probably focus this year. And before I was composing music for games, which stopped for now because I had to like focus on more up-to-date things, and I really wanted to be helpful. Like for my country, I was changing different activities throughout the year, starting from just fundraising money, using my contacts and established audiences in music industry before the full-scale invasion, then changing to more like music focused activity, making songs about this, and then also touring with my project. But yeah, I'll have an opportunity to elaborate on that during this talk because I have a small presentation. So thank you so much for having me, and it's really nice to be here.
Thank you very much to everyone. And I'm actually curious, like when or like how do you perceive music as a way that's not purely artistic tool, but as a way to change something in the wider society? Because I guess maybe for you as well, who are still based in Ukraine, you were in a way, I don't want to say forced to, but in a way, a lot of artists from Ukraine suddenly became in that situation where that was also a way how to raise awareness and how to fundraise and how to spread the awareness. Those who were in also moved to the West Europe. So how we can maybe start with you, Ira, like how do you perceive music as a tool for change, or how was it for you? Did you have this also before the war started, or were you sort of forced to sort of switch to focus on that aspect as well, the more sort of wider social and socio?
Yeah, I think if that's a good point to like share a couple of slides at this now, so that I can, you know, tell about all the things that could be connected to music, and it's not going to take a lot of time. Let me just, because it's just more visual. Let me. Okay. Second. Okay. Yeah, so before the war, I wasn't like involved in music activism at all. I just knew about it, that it happens, and that there are communities such as Oramics, for example, that helps like female and queer artists and tries to like put them forward. And I was really like excited about the idea, but I had like no topic that I could talk, that I felt really like focused on and I could talk about in my music. But with the war, it kind of changed. So with the full-scale invasion in February. So when I was preparing this small presentation, I was thinking about 4 points. First point was fundraising money using the existing audiences and connections that I had. So that was, for example, I was fundraising on my own for different needs for like soldiers with the first aid kits and things like tourniquets or things to stop critical bleeding, and it became like I was really focused on that. So you know, these like figures are really huge. I never thought that I would be able to raise that much, but people were really helpful. So you know, it was such a huge help. And I also thought that, you know, this whole thing that we learn about marketing and like PR in music when we promote our own projects, it helped me a lot to promote these kinds of activities within my audience. So that, I think that was helpful. And a lot of musicians that I know or people in culture use the same methods, and they started using their own audiences and connections to fundraise money. Second one was for me, after I've done some fundraising, I was thinking, how can I use my own music skills to, you know, spread the word about what's happening in my personal, you know, view on everything, my personal stories. So I wrote 2 songs with the, one was with the artist from Poland and another one with the artist from Lithuania. And this one, for example, it was like, I would never think that I would write something like this, like very political and very like, you know, the topic is really kind of bold. So the lyrics were, war is not a pop song, not trending on a playlist, war is not a lifestyle, but for some people now it is. For some people now it is, yeah, sorry. So, and that was when, you know, when I felt that people start forgetting, people in the West countries start forgetting that the war is still happening, and media doesn't pick up this topic anymore because it's there for like 3, 4, 5 months. So people don't want to hear about it anymore. So they, you know, it felt like, I felt annoyed that, you know, we have to promote the war kind of thing to move the focus again on us and to say that, you know, we still need help, we still need fundraising, we still need people to understand that the war is happening. But this song, it got us to another fundraising opportunity as it happened. So we became a part of the compilation of different songs by Loud Women in London. And it was fundraising money, so it fundraised like £400 for like just in December, and it's going to be fundraising more and more. So that's kind of combining making a song and also like fundraising money from it. One more thing that we did with my band was making statements that take the audience out of the comfort zone, and it happened at Sigit Festival. So we were performing at Sigit Festival, and we used this platform to, you know, say the message that we wanted to put across, which is like Russia is a terrorist state. And it was in August when not a lot of countries took this position yet. So it was kind of, it was really scary for us to do that, especially knowing that we are not like activist band, like, you know, before that. So it felt really scary. We didn't know how it's gonna like lash out, but we still did it. And I think even for us, it was like really powerful thing to do. We felt like we don't only like perform on stage, but also use this as a platform to get the message across, especially knowing that we couldn't write any songs during this time. So all our songs are still old and not about the war. So at least we had some visuals that reminded people at the festival that, you know, the war is still happening and that Russia is a terrorist state. And one more last thing is spreading awareness about the situation through articles, interviews, and touring. So this was one of the articles, like latest ones, that we used also kind of as a platform to say what's wrong with the Western media and like which phrases are not okay to say. So like it's also, I feel like now it is part of my kind of duty to use the interviews to like try and correct what media says and which is like wrong, you know. So like Ukrainian crisis, or like that Putin should be offered a way to save face. So like we have to be vocal about that this is not correct and things like that. One more little thing happened like in December. It was the opportunity for me to speak at SURE, the office of SURE in London during the music Women in Life music event, and where I could talk for the big audience about what's happening in Ukraine and our current needs and fundraising opportunities. So that was really important for me as well. And I wouldn't be able to be there if I wasn't a musician and a sound engineer. So that's another thing that I think we can say about music activism. And the last one, that we had a tour in 24 countries and some media coverage as well. And we could also fundraise some money through that. So I think I've put like together all the things that we could do, but I'm sure that music activism has like so many different things that I didn't cover. So it's just like our experience. And thank you so much for letting me share it.
No, thank you. It's really
Thank you.
amazing. Especially if, yeah, you were doing so many amazing things basically from one day, like, yeah, all your life is changing. And yeah. And Lena, how is it actually for you? How do you perceive this sort of activist role of music and art? And do you feel?
After Ira's speech, I can maybe develop the idea of activism, because Ira's activism, as she describes it, it's more for external auditories, for example, for European and the world. My way to do activism is mostly on local. So I would like to present to you like three of my projects and my partners' projects that we work on here in Ukraine, in our city. So I would start with my first idea that came to me more than 1 year ago, even before the full-scale invasion. But as you know, Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014 year, so we already, our country was already in war 9 years ago, I believe it's already 9. And the struggle and activism started much earlier than 24th February of 22 year. So I started to think about the music as the way to communicate some messages, some political messages. As we all understand, art is always political. My first project, a conscious project of music as an activism, was gathering together and performing the DJ sets that consists only of Ukrainian music, Ukrainian electronic scene. So yeah, I can maybe share some pictures with you. Share screen. Oh, okay. So it's always happening with the Ukrainian flag as the big message of what kind of music I'm playing, and promoting of Ukrainian music is kind of important because we can share the messages this music consists of, and make Ukrainian voices more powerful this way. For example, another project that I started to run after the full-scale invasion, when the situation was really harsh, and we all in Ukraine started to think what kind of resource do we have, and how can we help to each other, to fellow artists who were not that, let's say, lucky to be in safe place or wherever. So I was thinking, what kind of resource do I have, and how can I use it? And I saw that I've got a kind of safe place to stay. My city, Kryvyi Rih, was not under the missile attacks that much as some other cities in Ukraine. So I saw that my house, my family house, could be a kind of residency for the artists and volunteers who stay in not that really safe cities. So I started to use my house as a residency. For now, it's in a testing period, but I'm developing it so it can become more. And for example, I started to invite friends, artists from different regions, mostly from Lugansk, Donetsk region, which are under a big attack of Russian army. And we started to make workshops, started to make home musical jam sessions, making some recordings of it, and bringing it to public. In my city, I found the another activists and enthusiasts of Ukrainian culture, the company called Poroda. We tried to put together those two activities while artists come to my residency. It's a kind of private home residency, but still they are artists, and I proposed to them, like, would you like to make some public activities? Most of them say, like, yes, of course. And we started to make some public events. For example, mostly electronic and not always musical events, but still you can see some of the events we made in a bomb shelter, just bringing some sound system to a bomb shelter, and making some other activities of like, for example, festival activities, selling the artworks, not only listening to music. That's how bomb shelter actually looks, but when we bring people, it started to look like a concert place. Yeah, that's excuse me, I want to stop sharing the screen. How to do that? Stop sharing. Yeah. So that's three things that I see in my activist way, like promoting Ukrainian culture and language. Because as you can understand, there was a big amount of Russian language as the instrument of Russian imperialistic propaganda and politics in Ukraine previously. So for now, we have to develop Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian language, put it in the music, in a different kind of arts, whatever. Also making public events in the country, which is under attack under harsh attack of Russian army, is a kind of activism, because for example, we still even in Ukrainian society have this point of view. For example, like, how can you dance or listen to music while people die? But we fight for our culture mostly. Like, culture is the basis of why we still do it. And in my personal way, I use my own resources to share it with people who need it. So yeah, it's shortly about our and my own activism. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Perhaps we could, Seba, maybe you, because you're also an artist and you work with sampling as a let's say also as a protest. So you use music as a way to express something or criticize certain things in the world. So could you perhaps talk about how you sort of utilize your music as a way to maybe change something in the society, or what was your motivation to start, and to how do you, let's say, choose the samples and the subjects that you use?
Yeah, so I do believe that we are like now living in times of a collective trauma, a trauma that we are not, where we don't have actually the tools to digest these events and traumatic emotions. And so my roots are Kurdish, and I live in Vienna, and I grew up here, and I was born here, so I have the privilege to live here and to live like in a peaceful environment. But of course, if you're like part of the diaspora, where you have actually family there, and see the sounds and the sounds and the images of the war, which is happening in my case now in Rojava and in Iran. So this is kind of like a form of processing, a processing mechanism, and I would like to emphasize the importance of the communality of connection. Like we are wired to connect, and is it like something, the samples that I use or that I choose to use are like samples that have like a emotional impact on me personally. Like this is like something that I see from the internet, especially from Instagram, where we get all the informations, a lot of the information, because this is like the only tool or the only resources that people have to get the messages out of their country. So we are like now, I think Ira said it before, that people are just like tired of like hearing it or like seeing these pictures. So what I would like to do with the live sets that I do, I think this is just like something that traumatizing pictures, traumatizing musical snippets that we get like on the phone, and we're just like scrolling over them as if it's like some kind of like nuggets that we're eating. And with this sampling politics live sets, I try to as Mary Poppins says, medicine needs sugar. So I believe that our medicine is like our sugar is like music, and that we can embed it like maybe like in this like this messages need like this flowing beautiful instruments maybe to get through you, or music can be like that sugar to just open it up and to bring like these messages across, you know, like in a different form. And I did like my live sets like within really safe spaces where the people from the diaspora who feel needless, who feel needless, useless to say, like they don't have, they feel like they cannot do anything, but they need to process it somehow. And this has like the sampling politics has like on the one hand like a communality effect and a healing process to evoke like these healing processes, and of course for the diaspora who are living like abroad to actually get like access to process like all these things. And I do believe that it has like another effect to those people, because I did it in Vienna at some locations where I used the samplings, and where people were actually really emotional about it, and it was just like a form of protesting, but an alternative form. And I do believe that it has like the position to name the world, that we can actually tell the people like the stories through the work of music and transform it.
Yeah, definitely. And what you mentioned, the communality as well, and I guess solidarity is another.
Exactly, it's like a solidarity act, and it is something that we can actually, I think that we have to talk about these topics, that we have to bring people together and talk about this politics of war, and of course of the ethics of sampling the war. This is like something that is like really important as well. So how can we actually manage this? And of course, like we have like family members there, so everything that I do has like an effect on them as well. So if I, as Seba Kayan, now talk about or sample like something about the people or from the region there, it has like an effect of the people who are living there, and on my family and on the family members. So it has like a communality effect, and of course like a deep solidarity effect, and of course like to involve people who live in Vienna who are not actually who don't have family, or like who don't have the same background, I would say, concerning like the war, and to actually bring them into the boat and show them like how can you be how can you show solidarity? Because a lot of people are asking me, how can I be, how can I contribute, how can I be in use of, how can I do something? And I always tell them, come to the events, share the stories, come and experience it with the diaspora. So it actually gives them like another meaning, and it gives them support. And if we give the people the support that we can do from here, like in an alternative way, besides of reposting, resharing, which is like really important as well, but to use like alternative ways of storytelling, I would say.
Raising awareness, I guess.
Exactly, like raising awareness, and of course like getting the messages and the communication process in the music and through the music. And the question that I'm asking myself is just like, how can I be in service of this this issue? And the thing that I can do from my privileged perspective here from Vienna is just like raising awareness, building, doing events around these topics, and really sit down and play these live sets where I do use samples, and samples who are not easy to listen to. These are not like samples that are just like that you could hear in a club or something, but they're like really hardline stories that people are telling, or the voices of the war, and to sit the people through it and make like an experience through their body, and like through in my case, through electronic music, where you have the bass, where you have the kick, where you can have like synths into this, so it gets like a new thing, and it gets like decontextualized in another form and meaning. So the question that I'm asking myself is, how can we transform these experiences? And of course, like, how can it be like for the diaspora, like a healing process, and for the people who are not firsthand, like who say, okay, this war is happening like in the Middle East or in the Ukraine or wherever, where we can actually involve the people and make like a collective experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the community aspect is also important in terms of activism, because I think, yeah, you need to join forces to make a change, especially these days, I think. And Paulina, you with Oramics, you're doing that now, especially in the Central East European region, and you have been doing that for a while in various projects. So maybe could you talk about how activism is, how do you is sort of you employed, or how Oramics is basically doing activism?
Yeah, maybe I'll just start from like because a lot of has been said already, and it's a really broad topic, you know, activism and music, and a lot of has been mentioned in all of your like all of your short presentations and everything. Although I think maybe, yeah, this community building, that's what you already a bit briefly mentioned, Lucia. I think it's something which is pretty important for Oramics, and it's something we kind of work around with. And what do I mean by community building is like we perceive Oramics as of course, we're a collective of people, so there are few members, and we are kind of running the project together. But I think we also perceive the project as some sort of a platform, and the most important aspect of this platform is to share it with other people through different, you know, various like activities, and also like to give them space to amplify their voices, their practices, their music, and basically who are they. And maybe I'm gonna talk like maybe I'm gonna bring some examples here. So for instance, we run podcast series, and this is something really basic in a way, like you just invite someone to contribute a podcast. But on the other hand, it's also important to give the space, and this person can also use it further to promote themselves, or like we also use our platform to promote certain artists. And it's also important for us to, of course, invite artists from the region and from Eastern Europe in general. And why do I talk about this, giving a spotlight and this promotion and everything? It's because our region, or like Eastern Europe in general, I have the feeling it's kind of forgotten to some extent. And I think Ira, in your presentation, you mentioned this like media interest and how media is picking a certain topics, and then, for instance, like, you know, like so like, let's say that war in Ukraine now, it's gonna be picked up and it's all over the place, but then a few months later it's kind of nowhere, and it's a bit like forgotten, but it's still happening, and the war is still there, and it's still really important to talk about that. And on the other hand, at the same time, you know, there are a lot of artists, like there's like the financial center of the music industry is very often accumulated like in Western Europe, so like in London, in Berlin, in Amsterdam, and all of these big cities. And like very often artists coming from these cities, it's much easier for them to basically develop a career because there's much more resources they can operate with. And for instance, for us, it's also important to promote these people because, you know, they are also musicians. They also make great music. It's not like music which is made in Ukraine, in Poland, I don't know, in Hungary or like in Romania is not interesting, you know. It's just like, it's not promoted. No one maybe really knows about that, but it's something which is important. It's a topic we should be bring to the like further consideration to also bigger audiences. And also what comes with this is also like certain financial security, you know, like and how these people can basically further develop their career. So how that's very, very in a big perspective, this platform building and community building. But also, for instance, like we sometimes curate this special podcast series which are only dedicated for one country. Most recently, we published a podcast series dedicated to Hungarian artists and musicians coming from Hungary. And, you know, we have like a music piece, which is a podcast, but also on top of that, we have an interview with this artist, which is like, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be like a very, very big piece, but it's also like, you know, like to take a certain quote and like, to post it online, to reshare it, and to see what does it actually mean to live in Hungary, for instance, and what does it mean to create music there? What are the obstacles you come across in your community, in your industry? You know, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean? Because we don't know, we cannot know everything. So I think it's very interesting to also bring attention to these things and different countries and how they operate within the industry and music making and all of that. And also another thing which I think is also for me personally important is like it's all about making certain political choices, and for instance it can reflect in your practice as well. And I think that's also what Lena mentioned about like playing only music from Ukrainian artists. And I think this is also really powerful, and that's what we should also do. And for instance, I can also maybe mention that we as Oramics gonna start a residency at Refuge Radio in Berlin. And we're thinking a lot like what type of format for the radio residency we could have, like what we can bring to Berlin, for instance, you know, like what is important for us to say. And then we came up with this idea that maybe we can curate a podcast which will be dedicated to different countries from Eastern Europe, and then invite speakers who are gonna present only music from this region. And that may be how we can also broaden the perspective and horizons and learn basically more about who are these creative musicians coming from there. So I think, just to sum up, because yeah, this, you know, activism is like, it's a very huge topic, and like you can do it in many different ways. You can fundraise money, you can create platform, you can raise awareness, create this you know, events and opportunities, like also for the fact like that we are here today, you know, like it's also a great opportunity to network. Like I didn't know many of you, and it's really nice to also like talk to you today and hear about what are you doing, and maybe in the future we could collaborate on something. Or so I think it's also important to kind of expand this network, and because if we are together, it's much easier to do something, right? And if you're working by yourself, it's just like, you know, like activism is it's a very difficult thing and it's very often underpaid or not paid at all, and it's just like your free time, and you kind of need this motivation and these people to do stuff with you. So yeah, so if I can sum up, sorry for this super long speech, that's what I would say. We kind of how we perceive, or how I perceive as an Oramics member, activism.
Yeah, it's also interesting because Oramics, you did like also the survey about the representation of Eastern European artists in Western European media, and it's also quite superficial, because now with the war in Ukraine, a lot of the Western media finally noticed that there are artists in Ukraine, and Ukraine had an amazing scene for ages, but suddenly like a lot of Western European media has noticed, and it's also, yeah, who knows until when, but yeah, it's also a thing how to change these sort of very traditional or very sort of the embedded sort of West East sort of or West and the rest of the world, and the focus and the fleeting focus which changes according to where the news are, and it's also
I think it's really sad that this that basically that the fact that we need to have like such an awful situation as war in Ukraine in order to pick up media attention, because for instance we also had these situations as Oramics before the war actually happened, that we are submitting some applications, you know, we also do a lot of grant writing and applying for like grants for some events, projects, ideas, just basically to get money. And then I remember we were submitting some discussion proposals to different festivals about Eastern Europe and how we can basically strengthen our region and cooperation within the region, and the network of creative people and musicians, etc. And these applications, they were, for instance, rejected. And then, you know, a war happened, and apparently everything was like, festivals started being like, oh, you know, we have to now implement a talk about Ukraine in our festival, like, I don't know, discourse program, because that's what we should do. And that's great that they're doing that. You know, I don't want to say it's not great, but it's just kind of sad also to come to this realization that there were these ideas before and they were rejected. And I think it's pretty awful. So I totally agree with that. But for instance, when you are, Lucia, talking about this, that the media are picking the interest, and they are maybe the coverage is a little bit bigger these days. That's true. But for instance, we did this infographics about this representation of like in a representation of Eastern European artists in one of the biggest mix series. And for instance, Resident Advisor has a huge mix series, and none of the artists who published a mix for them between certain time, I don't remember now exactly, I think July 2020 and October 2022, none of these artists were Ukrainian. So it's also like a bit, of course, media are picking up, but like then maybe not really, you know, which is also really, really sad.
Yeah, and I also find like the thing that only because you come from a certain country that has war going on, like you are then contextualized. If there's an article, maybe then the context is there. The focus is on that rather than maybe the art and stuff. You have also, to sort of represent this sort of where you come from, even if you maybe don't feel like it, but then you automatically sort of framed in a certain way, like an artist coming from a war zone, basically. And
I think also, if I can say two things very quickly, it's also the problem with this media coverage is, for instance, tokenization, you know, and like I attended some festivals this year who basically said they're gonna book a lot of Ukrainian musicians and artists, and they're gonna help like them to kind of promote, give them a spotlight, blah blah blah, etc. But then, for instance, they played the opening sets, you know, and no one was there, or like there were 5 people or something, because it's an opening set or closing set. So it's all about this little political choices you have as a promoter, as a booker, also as an artist, of course, and as a collective. But like for instance, if you know, like I honestly, I also think that there should be a lot of people from Western Europe here, and like who should also listen to this talk, because I have the feeling that we more or less know what is the problem, but there is a lot of support needed from these people who are in power, you know, because it's not like I own a venue, it's not like I am a booker, it's not like I'm in a lot of power here. I can do what I can, as much as I can, to help, or like to use my platform to support, but yeah, I don't have that much in a way, you know. And then for instance, if you are a promoter somewhere and if you want to put together a lineup for an event, maybe think about like, so probably a lot of people left Ukraine, you know, like after war started, and maybe they're somewhere around in my network, and maybe I should ask some people about that, or maybe I should reach out to them, or maybe I should just do some sort of a small research and find these people, and maybe I should invite them over, pay them money, you know, like for the performance. And maybe instead of having 5 people from Berlin, or like, I don't know, some people from Western Europe, I can have like some other artist who's coming from Ukraine, and etc. So like, I think this is all about these choices, and like, who do you decide to represent, and who do you decide to give a spotlight? And it's really important, in my opinion. And sometimes just people don't think about that, and it's pretty sad, you know.
Gaby, since you're involved in several projects based in Berlin, and we just talked, I mean, Berlin is sort of like in between, let's say, East and West, but you have a platform, several platforms, also a radio where you're involved in, and how do you sort of work with sort of equal representation and the stuff, maybe what Paulina was also saying about maybe artists from certain regions not being represented fairly in Western European platforms and stuff?
Yeah, so I guess for Refuge worldwide as a radio station, I think it's very important for us to amplify voices from different parts of the world. And I'm not personally in charge of like the programming of the station. I actually do like educational programs. But it is important for us to really have a balance and try and think about how we can highlight different sounds from different parts of the world, but also different stories. And a big part of what I do is providing opportunities for people that maybe don't have access or don't have a community. So I program different programs, whether that's in radio production or music production. And the idea is to give a space for people to meet and connect, and also provide a network. So a lot of the time what happens is we have people that maybe don't necessarily have a big network, or they're feeling slightly isolated in their creative practice. They can come and join these programs, learn new skills, and then we can bring them into our community and our platform. So we have a lot of people that have come through these programs who then go on to get booked for gigs, or they have radio shows on our station. And we're always very, very open to everyone that emails us. And yeah, we try and operate in this way where we're like an open community, and we very much learn from each other and exchange. So we have a programmer that programs the station, but we also have this like educational side that allows for people that might not necessarily have that opportunity, but have a drive or have an ambition to come through those programs in order to then either be on our platform or benefit from our connections and our network, basically.
And when it comes to education, how do you think that music can be, let's say, utilized as a tool for change in terms of education, which I think is also important with the younger generations and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think all ages. I mean, I've seen like different sides of how music education can change or help people, and I think if I look back to the work that I did in 2015, 2016, I was going to refugee centers and creating spaces for people to make music together. And these people came from all different parts of the world, different parts of Africa or Asia, or really from all different parts, speaking completely different languages. And music was this incredible thing that brought everyone together, and didn't matter where you were from or what language you spoke, music brought a smile to everyone's face. You know, it brought joy. And, you know, we were sitting in a room full of people that were quite shy, or, you know, also in a situation where they can't work, they're stuck in a refugee center, they don't really have access to that much information. And then you bring them into this space and you introduce music, and it's a way for people to have fun together, to interact. So I see music as a space to create joy, to create connection, to help heal as well. So I see music very much in that sense, but in terms of more long-term educational programs, it's really about providing opportunities for people that don't have access. They might be marginalized in some way, they don't have the economic finances to support their career. So everything we do is completely free of charge. No one has to pay to enter our programs. And that also, you know, for us, that means that we have to try and find funding and support. But we really, really believe that it's important to provide free education so that you can equalize or try and balance out the music industry that is very white male dominated. So it really is important for us to try and shift that balance, and the way that we see we can do that is by providing free education for people that don't have access.
Thank you. Ira, actually, I wanted to ask you, because you were showing some photos, images of some of the activist initiatives that you did, let's say at Sziget and stuff. So could you maybe talk about how these actions are sort of created, how these sort of awareness actions are, even practically and technically, how do you sort of develop them? Do you work with more people on them, and also at an event like huge festival that's like Sziget, a very sort of institutionalized festival, like to create such an action? Yeah, it's like how does such an awareness and various awareness initiatives that you do, how do you create them, and how do they come?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I mean, with the Sziget, it was it happened because at Sziget there were performing also Russian artists, and we wanted to make a statement that we don't want them here, and it was a statement also like against the festival itself, even though we were taking part. And they were trying to do some steps towards the Ukrainian artists, but like they still didn't cancel 3 Russian artists that were there, and we had like a huge debate about whether to go or to cancel our performance overall. But then we thought that it would be wiser to use the platform, because if you think about it, we don't perform like on the same stage with Russians, or like we don't collaborate making songs with them, right? But we just use the festival as the platform to speak. So it's the same as like we're using Facebook to like convey different things, like Russians are also on Facebook. Shall I like cancel my account from there or something? But that's why like we felt like we have to do something to, you know, on the stage, not just perform silently and say like, oh yeah, thank you for the opportunity and go, but you know, use the most of it. And we didn't know how the organizers will also like, you know, if they will shut down the presentation during the song, if they will like stop the video, because, you know, this is something that is basically forbidden to do at Sziget, because they are the island of freedom and they're like apolitical and everything. But yeah, this year a lot of Ukrainian artists did some performances like this, but we didn't talk about it before. So it wasn't like a joint action or anything like that. And we work in like very small team. It's like me and Alona, who is also here. She's a part of the residency as well. We are electronic duo. And sometimes, so she develops a lot of our visual things, visual parts like the our flyers and everything. And my boyfriend, who's now mobilized and who serves Ukrainian army, he has done this video for us. For the one that we used at Sigit, so it is yeah. So that's the that's the one of the things. But all the other things, I mean, it really depends. But usually we just cope ourselves. So because I don't know, we believe in like DIY. So like we do things inside, what we can do, or yeah, I think most of the things that we've done, like we would do like with our friends, or yeah, mostly it's on us.
And technologies, do they help?
Technologies?
Technology, social media, do you use that as a tool?
Yeah, I mean, the social media we used for fundraising a lot, or also like during when we were organizing a tour. We posted like on social media, like if anyone wanted to help us to organize a concert in your city, and a lot of people were helpful. And I think that was also because there is a war in Ukraine and people want to do what they can, what's in their yeah. So I mean, it was much easier to organize a tour now than it would be like a year before, just because people like really wanted to help with that. So but yeah, we did this like shout out, and I think it's very important sometimes to like ask for help. And sometimes when we are like, what should we do, we just ask our audience and like can you tell us where to go next, or like what to do, what's missing. So that helps like to put this focus, or like to put the responsibility on the people, like to take a breath, because sometimes it feels like suffocating when you do, because it always feels you that you don't do enough. So it's yeah,
like there's this it's like a pressure that comes from inside that you think you should be doing more.
Yeah, definitely, because like the war is still there, and you feel like, oh, I'm just making music, or oh, I've just done this post, or like I just went and did the concert. So basically this is like an enjoyable thing, and you feel like you have to suffer together with your people and not do some enjoyable things. So sometimes this also happens, which is like not helpful to anyone, and it just like eats you from inside. So I think it's important to like ask for help, or like talk to people who go through similar experiences. But yeah, for me, it's very important to be like productive for my country. So like whenever I feel that I'm burning out, I'm trying to take a break just to be productive tomorrow. But like I know that it's really like hard to do, especially at the beginning. It was really hard to do.
It's a lot. Lena, you also wanted to say something?
Yeah, I raised my hand to maybe add and continue the message of Ira. I must say I'm super radical in some of my positions, because the more I get to know about Russian imperialistic politics, and the more I see what they do to my people, to my country, the more radical I become. It's just the way of my survival. And so one message that we try to send in our Ukrainian society, and I would like to spread more in a world society, is the message of boycotting the Russian product, the Russian content, and like connections with the Russian artists, because it's just the way of our economic activism. Like every dollar that Russian artist, even if them's position is like super anti-war and whatever, it gonna go to the Russian economics. Russian economic use it for making more missiles, for making more war instruments. That's how military economic work. So we started this kind of activism in our Ukrainian community of musicians before the full-scale invasion. It's it's not my lower hand, so it's not good. It used to be before the full-scale invasion. It was really bad to go perform to Russia if you are Ukrainian artist, but we had some examples of artists who did that actually. And it's of course very bad position to use support by Russian content and to ask Russian artists to perform in, of course, in Ukraine. It's like unrealistic situation for now, but I see lots of examples when festivals in Europe or different like companies, they still call Russian artists to participate, and not maybe not understanding where actually those money gonna go. They're gonna go for killing people in Ukraine. Yes, that's radical, but still I'm about this message. Like let's boycott Russian content, and let's not call Russian artists to participate in cultural activities in the world. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Lena. And Olesya?
Yeah, I would just, you know, because I do believe that in these things, when trying to explain your position, you should be very practical, because this is true that people who don't experience this, they can't understand why it may be. And I would love to add from my side that, you know, to boycott, it's not only like because of the financial, because it's not good to support the army financially, because when you buy their products or pay the artists, you support their army. But it's really, I do believe that it's really a matter of our survival, because if boycotting for some time, you can make artists who don't express their position, you can make them go and protest. And I really want to believe in this, that if some Russian artists who don't support, who don't boycott, who can be somewhere abroad and who just doing art and not going to demonstrations, or who not express their position, that this boycott can become the instrument of influence, and maybe it can make them to protest, and this can save our lives, those who stay in Ukraine. Yeah, sorry if I'm a little bit been emotionally, but I think it should be very practical explanation. And yeah, so I added to Lena's words, yeah, some practical details.
Of course, don't be sorry. Does anybody from all of you who are here have any questions, or even you, all of us basically, or anybody has any remark or anything to add to anything that was discussed? Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Do you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah. My name is Emma. I'm nice to join you. I wanted to ask about this topic. Whether to I want just to know your opinion, all of you. Whether to join events. Okay. I need to start from explaining that I'm also into that we have to boycott Russian music and Russian content, and I'm originally from Azerbaijan. I try to explain here why I do that, because I'm living in Ukraine for 5 years and I'm also experiencing all these horrible things, and I try to explain it here too, and people, thanks God, understand it. But there are also some events where you cannot affect, and they are not boycotted, and they also take part in that events. I saw that a lot of times, and I saw a lot of hate to Ukrainian artists who participated and who wanted also to take part and to raise awareness. So they have chosen to tell about the situation, but they were hated for taking part in the event with the Russians on the one stage, not on the one stage, but on the same event. What do you think what to do in that situation? Because we have similar situation in Azerbaijan, for example. We are a part of Caucasus, and we have war with Armenia. And we have this war for 30 years, I think. And the problem is that the situation is like the same. For example, when Armenia takes part in some events, our artists don't take part, and vice versa. But the problem is that we lose an opportunity to tell something if we don't take part. So is it better to be hated but to have a voice and to have an opportunity to tell something, or should we boycott it, like, and not have and lose this possibility to tell something? What do you think? Because for me, I think that it depends on situation. If you can, for example, make more use and to be useful, telling your position on the event, so maybe it's better to go and tell it. But yeah, but it's a little bit controversial situation. What do you think?
Anybody?
May I ask in my position? I would say that your act of boycotting is a message. Like, why are you boycotting it? And you can describe in different medias why you boycott it. But for me, I said it before, I'm radical in this way. Maybe not everybody work this way, but I would not share the stage with my enemy. That's how it works. We should fight the enemy, not like be in one stage and maybe make hugs after our performances. That's not gonna work. No, like that's how I think, my personal radical.
No, I don't tell about huggings and no.
I understand.
No. With a straight position, with telling that Russia is a terrorist state and so on, without any дружба народов, peace, love, and no such thing. No, just we are losing our opportunity to tell something if we don't have a huge audience. I understand that if you are a well-known, for example, singer or I don't know, artist, you have opportunity to make it as a statement that you don't want to act on the same stage. Yeah, but if you are a beginner and it's the only way how you can tell something, it's, I don't know how to act in that situation.
May I add a small, even if you're not a really famous, super recognizable artist, you can go and raise awareness, for example, in Twitter. If you see how, for example, Ukrainian Twitter works this way, you can spread your message for like very big auditory, even not having a big account. Just describe like your position, why you boycott, why those festival, for example, organizers should not call the your enemy artist to perform, and make this call to participate. Another users can join you in this, like believe in your community. I think community is the answer always, like your own community. Yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
Next, I don't know, Olesya and Ira, I think.
Anya at first wanted to answer.
Yeah, I also wanted to, I had a comment, but also to join the discussion which is going now. I think there is an illusion that dialogue is a solution in every case, and it's a solution only in some case. And I think this idea that there is like two kind of truths, Ukrainian truth and Russian truth, and we should come together and we will tell our story, how it looked from our side, and like Russian artists will tell their story, how it looked from their side. So I think it's totally just misleading, and it's a way how to lose the point, because it's actually only one truth, you know. Because there is still in Russian society, as you know, the majority is supporting the invasion, and the huge number are voluntarily taking part in it. So I think this idea of dialogue is very dangerous in our case, because it creates the illusion that there is possible that we can like accept it just because we like talk or something. So instead of keeping this wall until really Russian musicians will take responsibility responsibility on themselves on the actions of their society. So I think it's like for me personally, I have like people with whom I was working before from Russia in like long time ago, and it's also personally difficult like to cut all connections, but we I think have no choice. So until they will take responsibility on themselves. And I don't know any Russian artist who would criticize imperialism or something like that, not just saying like we are for peace. And on this other hand, I know like maybe you know like Pussy Riot, it's an example of appropriation of Ukrainian struggle. That recently Pussy Riot went on a tour in the EU and North America using pictures of Bucha, of Borodyanka, of like genocide, Russian army committing genocide of Ukraine in Ukrainian cities. And so it's also like the way, it's another point I wanted to add, that like not always what seems as activism is makes sense, because sometimes it's appropriation of someone else's struggle and making capital on it, like in case of Pussy Riot. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Can I add briefly? You know, I think I also noticed actually that for me, the need of statement and understanding with whom I work, in sense that with whom I work with Ukrainian artists, and need to understand their position and to understand that it is clear position also became very important. And I mean that there are artists who just continue doing music. And now I feel that for me, it's also not enough. And in this sense, to have this statement, if the Russian artists, they show this statement and they are active and they do real support, and then I understand with whom I work, with whom I cooperate, and what's the position of the person. And yeah, I don't know how to explain, because usually music is something very abstract, but yeah, I think it's not enough just to do music in these times.
Ira?
Yeah, I just wanted to add regarding the participating at the festivals together with the Russian artists, because we had this problem that we were hated in Ukraine by.
I mean that I guess it was Ziget also, because I've seen that hate, and I wanted also to hear someone who had this problem.
Yeah, so for me, before this case, it was like 100%, I'm not gonna ever go to any festival or like, you know, set the foot anywhere. When it happened, like I'm still like for boycotting Russians as much as possible, but sometimes the cases could be like a bit more complicated and not as, you know, like white and black. Usually I'm really pro white and black, but in this situation, because 12 artists from Ukraine went to Sighet, and we were like, you know, a group of artists, and we were the only ones who raised the question of boycotting and not going. And we were like we had like 4 different chats and like Zoom calls with other artists, and half of the artists said like we are not into politics at all. And I was thinking, what are they gonna say to international media if they ask them what are the problems in Ukraine? They will just be silent or like, oh, we don't know, we are not into politics, so, you know, we just make music. And I didn't want, you know, not to represent Ukraine and not to show the strong position within the media. And this is what I could do only when going to Sighet. So that was one of the things. And, you know, if we would go there, we had to show this like big, you know, like message that we did from the stage, and also to be super active. We were standing next to the Ukrainian tent all the time, catching all the media and trying to get the message across. So we were trying to do like what we could, but we realized that if we don't go, we are a small artist. We have like a really small following. There were like much bigger artists who would go there, and you know, no one would follow us because we tried, and like people said we need money, we need to sustain our children, this is like not as important and stuff. So we took this responsibility, and people still hate us. Like in media, it was like huge thing. For me, it was really painful because I've never done anything like that, and I've never went like again, you know, being hated before. So, but like, and I realized that I understand people who were hating. I was one of those like just before that. But, you know, we decided this is more important to go and spread the message. So that's it. It's not white and black case. So I realized we take part of the blame, and, you know, it's not 100% correct that what we've done, but I think we've done the most of the situation.
Thank you. And perhaps some final remarks from the rest of the participants. Paulina, Seba, Gaby, if you have any like any remarks. And also it was interesting how Olesya said, like, yeah, music is just making music is not enough anymore. Like this sort of aspect of having to do beyond the artistic activities. If you want to comment on that, or if you have any other remarks, maybe, yeah, feel free.
I think it's for me it's really difficult to answer this question, which was asked by Emma, if I remember correctly, because, you know, like I'm coming from a country who is like I'm in a completely different situation, you know, like my country is not at war, and it's just like I cannot imagine what does it mean to be in a situation like this, and it's just really difficult to take a stand and give any advice what to do in that situation. So I think it's very, very personal, and it's like it's a bit like, I think I'm resonating with what Ira said. Like, it's just like there's no black and white, and if it's better for you, if your principle is to, for instance, cancel this type of gig or reject the opportunity or something, it's fine, and it's just like you're in peace with yourself. But if you also want to take this opportunity, do something with that, or maybe just bring yourself, or maybe just be represented, because this is also very important in my opinion, representation, it's also fine. So I think it's very, very personal, and like I could never be able to deliver any yes or no in terms of like what you should, for instance, do, you know. Although I must say it's really interesting to hear all of these voices. And what's your opinion, yeah, about this cultural boycott, and how do you feel about that? Because, you know, like it's interesting to hear your perspective also. Yeah, like for you, it's you're there, and like, and you experience it in a completely different way than people in in Western Europe or like in countries who are not going through this, and you know, they can only read about that on like news or like see it on social media or something. And I don't know, I don't think I have anything else to add on this here. I just think it's important to also hear this perspective and how do you actually understand this, you know. So yeah, so just thank you for all of your contribution.
Yeah, so I think it's, as you all said, it's like from my perspective, where I'm like in Vienna, I cannot like judge about this, but I think that Ira said this, that everything that we do has like a political connotation, and everything is political, and even having like a message or getting like to getting like standing like towards like a topic. And the question is, of course, like how can we bring like politics back to, in my case now, I cannot, I just can talk like from my own perspective, like bring politics into like to the clubs, to the dance floor, and involve the people who are there, who are like going out and who are like just like participating like in some communities. So I do believe that that every artist has like voice to say and like a political message to come across, and I think it's important to actually use that voice as an artist, as a performer, and as a DJ in my case.
Thank you. Gaby, do you perhaps, it can be also a general sort of opinion about, let's say, like about having to be, or like in these days being activist and having an opinion, and the politics of how that is played in the creative sphere these days, if you would like to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo like what you were saying. Like I'm very, I think it's really important to hear all of these discussions today. So just thank you everyone for being so open and sharing your opinions. I think from my perspective, you know, I think music can be a space where people can meet and exchange, and it can be a space to heal. But I think you know, I'm coming from a place where, you know, we're not in a war zone. And so, you know, it's quite different, I guess, the way that I see music in terms of like activism. I think a lot of people that I work with who are, let's say, maybe bigger artists who have an amazing career, their way of being an activist is by volunteering their time and sharing their knowledge and giving back in that way. So I think the way I see it is it's about giving back and using the resources that we have around us to try and create space for people to meet and create. So yeah, I think it's about like using the resources that we have and trying to activate those.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just great that we actually talking from different parts and different regions, and that we even this talk, I think, is a good way how to, I don't know, spread, talk, basically, share. Yeah, definitely. I don't know if any of you have any final remarks, because I think we are sort of passing over our time, even though I guess we could go on. But yeah, I don't know, any of you have any final remarks, questions?
Yeah, I got. Hello, everyone. You see, my idea is, it's more maybe even hope than some rational thought, but I really hope that really soon Europeans, and especially British people who I respect more, would finally consider to co-work with Ukrainians, not dealing with humanitarian thinking based on humanity, based on supporting poor Ukrainians who suffer from war and so on, from aggression. But I really hope that they will find some rational reasons to work with us, like the real value of our creativity, the real value of our production. This would be like the win of the game, because we really have what to show, and it would be much better to find support based on the quality of our product than based on quotations, on just the common support, on some maybe sympathy. Yeah, so now I see more sympathy than the real interest, because as you said before, there were really like the question of Ukrainian artists being rejected, and only several Ukrainians were successful if we take the electronic scene. Yeah, and they usually had to offer much more than the typical European artist. So if we talk about girls, they had to be twice more beautiful than others. They had to mix twice better than others, you see, and only in this case they were accepted. Yeah, but I think that Ira also told about the feel of being not enough, of working not enough. So we are feeling constant guilt of being not effective enough. You see, it also deals with us, I'm sure, that we are not thinking that we are good enough. So it is also the problem of most of maybe creative people. So, and if we both like feel that we are good enough, and you find that we are good enough, so maybe in this case we'll be accepted based on the quality of our production. That is what I'd like to see soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a few words about cancellation. This topic is really bothers me since I'm working like in the music industry, and I need to explain to non-Ukrainian people who also work in the industry why cancellation is important. But for God's sake, I can't find you know, like logical answers to this and really fight their arguments. For example, like if you want to cancel Russians, why then you won't cancel people from Great Britain, for example, who are also like part of the empire, and the empire still exists, but in a different way than Russia, maybe through not through the like war conflicts or something like this, but through offshores and trust funds and so on. So in the end, we can, you know, find ourselves when we can't book anyone because everyone is cancelled. And when you cancel other people, a lot of, I'm sorry, like shit is going on from, you know, appearing on the in front of you. And then I really feel that I'm losing my energy reading all of those disgusting comments and stuff. And I would rather use this time to develop myself and to, I don't know, like create opportunities for other Ukrainian electronic music artists rather than cancel someone. And what do you think about it? Should we still, you know, like fight and try to explain to Europeans, or we should more maybe concentrate on ourselves and maybe like contribute into our development?
May I ask, from my perspective, I think we can do both, actually. Like, why not becoming more good in your practices and still continue to communicate with your partners, with your allies, European people who help Ukrainian democracy to survive, to you know, go further, And like, why would not we cancel a terrorist state? Still, if we start from the position that Russia is actually the terrorist organization, many questions becoming more clear on what should we cancel or not. Like, that's my position. Thanks.
Somebody else?
Yeah, may I also hope on this statement. Hi, Dasha. This is the thing, and this the thing you were talking about is a big part of the concept. What I am thinking about, so what is our not destiny, so to say, but what is our plan as a cultural activists here abroad from Ukraine? And I'm thinking that yet the more efficient way to exist here is to build a strong own culture, own niche, but not in the case of being separated, like for instance it's happened with Syrians in Germany or something like that, which was like culturally natural for them. Like, not deeply into this topic, I'm not very well understanding that, but the point is that I think we should not become a culture of cancellation of Russia, you know. So like right now, after the time since the start of the war, which already happened, for me, if I would need to choose to do an event or do a show or do whatever, which would be concentrated on, I don't know, showing a footages of Bucha or Mariupol or something like that, or between showing a show with, I don't know, some new Ukrainian band with, I don't know, 200 followers, I would choose the second one, because it's something about actually bringing us and recovering from the long time of emancipation and defeat of our culture in Europe. So like, I'm really into trying to put back the reasonable amount of us into European centralized culture, so to say. And in this case, we need to all the time reflect and re-reflect of who we are, not only the so to say the culture of people who are fighting the Russia and so on, but also besides that, we have a very deep background and very widespread amount of, so to say, cultural topics to talk about. And I'm thinking how not to lose them and how to find a priority of what doing, because of course, like being a defendant in any cases is our like pivotal and top one priority, but not the only one. That's the point of us reflecting on a future Ukrainian modern culture, both in Ukraine and both abroad. So yeah.
Thank you. Alessia?
Yeah, unfortunately, we need to finish. It's quite late, and I should say that I'm really thankful for you to join us, and I would love to have more opportunities to discuss and to involve communities. And you know, I will mark the moment that was unexpected for me, and these unexpected psychological moments are now very important for us, because it's like really hard time doing everything and being activism and trying to do the music, though it's actually very, very hard. And that's why we want really Russian artists to protest, because we also want to do art and we really want to survive. But yeah, this psychological moment I noticed, and you know, when our foreign guests said that they also don't know what to do with this situation, this you know, to choose. And probably it's really sometimes these questions, you know, for us it's really huge, overwhelming responsibility. And I completely support Ira, who went to the festival, and all what they did. This is really very cool. But for us, it's really huge stress. And even just to hear that you also don't know what to do. And sometimes it's not like, you know, the 100% black and white, and it's you should to deal with this. It's little some relief to have, and for me it was also very important because the psychological stability and dealing with the situation, it's really very important now. So having this session, it's something more than just talking about the statements and choosing the right position. I'm really thankful to have this talk with you, and I hope we will have more talks. And tomorrow we have the session Music and War, that is actually more psychological, about experience we have in crisis times and what to do with this, how to help ourselves, how the communities can support. Welcome tomorrow. The same time, the same link, and thank you once again. We should finish. Let's keep in touch. You can follow us, Institute of Sound and London's IKLECTIK, and we also do international residencies, and really happy to have opportunities for communicating and doing the next projects and cooperating. Hope we will have this opportunity. So thanks a lot. Lucia, maybe the last words, and let's finish.
I wanted to thank you, and you all doing amazing things, really, really, and just thanks for being here, and come tomorrow, and good luck with everything, all of you who are here, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.